What's the color of a ripe banana? Yellow. I'm Philip and this is Mastering Shells. Okay, last time we looked at how we can create and delete files and folders. Today we're not going to just create files, we're actually going to read the contents of files. And we're going to write the contents of files as well. But we've got a lot to get through today, so let's get right into it. First command we're going to look at is cat for concatenate files to standard output. Basically, it means print what the file says. For example, we have 3 files here and we're gonna cat overview.txt, and today we're gonna look at cat, then we're gonna look at more and less, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about VI and Vim and how they differ, but also how it doesn't make a big difference, and then we're gonna look at Vim. Okay, so first, that's basically cat, concatenate. Done. Next, more. More allows you, so cat works well with short files like overview, for example, but cat does not work so well with long files. You can see this is a line file with 1,000 lines and it's difficult to read. Okay, so this is where more and less come in place. More, we're gonna print long file, more long file. And now you can see it only printed as many lines as it can actually contain. And if I press enter, I can go 1 line at a time through the file. I can use the down arrow to jump by page. So we ended up 120 and here we started 121. I can iterate through, but I'm not missing any lines. Now we can scroll up here, but all these commands come from terminals where the terminal just printed what's on the screen, and lines that were pushed off screen, they were gone forever. So it was important to be able to print long files 1 line at a time.
Nah, I never knew that.
So we had more, and now we're gonna look at less. Less is like more. You can look at long files, but you are not looking at long files printed on the screen. Actually, it's more an text print editor. And we press Q to get out of it, and you can see the actual command didn't print anything into our standard output. In the next episode, we're gonna look at standard output and the difference and what that means exactly. So we're also gonna look at pipes. If you haven't subscribed yet, do that now so that you don't miss it. But essentially, more and less allow us to view long files batches at a time without missing any files. Okay, we're gonna, let's see what our overview is. We're running at a great pace. That's mostly because we're gonna go through a lot with Vim. It's a very steep learning curve, a lot steeper than everything we've gone through so far. But let's talk about VI and Vim. So a bit of history lesson. VI was developed in 1976 and it was part of the Unix operating system. It is a text editor that allows you to edit text files.
Oh, really?
And it was built to be tiny, to be accessible and work from a terminal. And it was basically adopted by all major operating systems except for Windows. But what is Vim? So if I open on my machine, which is a Linux Ubuntu machine, I press VI, I don't actually get VI, I get Vim. VI improved. Essentially, it's a completely different application that was built to be very similar to VI, but has a lot of additional features. For example, multi-level undo, which we're gonna look at, text highlighting, which we're not going to look at today, but we can look at and we will see in the future. Visual block, which we definitely will look at, which is very useful, and a few other things that make Vim just much more useful as an editor, much more powerful. So why did it open Vim when I opened VI? When I pressed VI? Because actually in most modern operating systems today, the VI utility has been replaced with Vim because it's so much more capable and VI has been mapped, symlinked or hard linked to be the Vim application.
How rude!
And so it really doesn't make a big difference, VI or Vim. I personally am a big fan of Vim, and that's what we're gonna get into today. So we're gonna Vim instructions. So Vim instructions is a file that I created when I actually recorded this whole video already, just to find out that my screen recording wasn't working properly. So I'm now recording the whole thing again. And in that I created Vim instructions. But we are going to go through that with you. This is Vim. We can basically see this tilde sign means they're not real lines. These are the only lines. And if I type anything, for example F, nothing comes in. We see down here that it caught the input, but it didn't put it into my file. That's because we were not in a special mode needed to be able to type into files. If you're used to a modern text editor with graphic user interface, when you type something, you want to type that on the screen. But because there are no GUI interfaces, we can't, there's no taskbar, there's no file menu. We need to be able to interact and control Vim and tell Vim what we want it to do, also using key inputs. And so the way it works is certain key inputs, like I, put Vim into a certain mode, in this case insert mode, that allows us to insert stuff. I for inserting text. Escape always brings us back out of that mode. Okay. I for inserting text. Then O for, I don't actually know what O stands for. If you know, leave a comment below. For, I guess, opening a new line. Enter. And then last but not least, we have A for appending text after character. So what is the difference? You noticed when I pressed A, we also ended up in the insert mode. What's the difference between A and O? Let's go into the character A right here. And we press I before escape. And we put our cursor on A again. We press A after. So you can see I inserts text before the character, O opening a new line. Appending text after the character. I can use the delete button to delete keys even if I'm not in the insert mode, but I cannot use the backspace to delete keys until I'm in insert mode, then backspace will work. But we don't just have I and O, we also have capitals. And if I type the capital letters, I will do some other things. For example, capital A appends at the, for appending text after the current line. So if you noticed, I put my cursor in the middle and capital A puts the cursor at the end and I can append right here. What does capital I do? Similarly, if I go in the middle of the line, capital I inserts at the beginning of the line. I for inserting text before the current line. And what does capital O do? It opens a new line before the previous line. O for opening a new line before the current line. Okay, so these are already great basics. We can now type text, we can delete it again, but Actually, if you know what you're doing, you can be a lot more efficient than in deleting. For example, I want to delete this whole line. I can do that with the command dd. We're gonna do U for undo. Really important, we're gonna record that. Oops. We're gonna record that one immediately. U for undo, and you just saw I did 2 undos. O for opening. Vim can do multiple undos. As long as you don't close the file, you can undo in most operating systems, Vim versions, all the way to the beginning of when you open the file, like you can do in modern text editors. The original VI only had a single step undo. If you made multiple changes and you wanted to undo them, basically like Control Z, you couldn't do that. U for undo. So these delete, and by doubling it, you mean the whole line. You can also go DE for until the next space. DD to delete a line. Very useful. DD, we deleted a line. We're gonna revert that because we want to append a new line. We can also, what if we want to copy a line? That's Y. Seems a bit weird, but same as DD for deleting the whole line, we're gonna yank the line with Y. And with P, we can insert that line. So we're gonna E to yank a line. And we've already used this, but P to paste the line. So if we yank the yank line and we paste it, you can see we copied this whole line. YY. As opposed to deleting the line and then pasting it. This way it gets only cut and paste essentially. So when we yank, it's kind of like Control C on the whole line. When we DD, it's kind of like Control X on the whole line. We cut it out. We can also insert with capital P. We can paste the line above again, same as for O, where it's before the current line. So if a P inserts it below and capital P inserts it above. Okay, let's P to paste a line above the current line. We've already learned a lot, but there's so much more to go. Vim also has a few settings. With colon, we can access settings. By set, we want to set a setting, number. This is a very useful setting that I use to be able to view the current line numbers. Why is that useful? Because then I can see where I am. Also, it allows me to, for example, from 8 to 13, including 8, that's 6 lines.
Quick maths.
We can go 6, yank, and you can see it said 6 lines yanked. So I can use this whole block and paste this whole block here. Very useful for copying functions, for example, in a script, or copying whole, for example, I don't want to delete this. This line should have been deleted. This line should have been deleted. I could have also done this with 2 delete 2 lines at a time. So by number and command where it makes sense, then it executes that command for number of lines. For delete and pasting and yanking, that makes sense. Okay, another very useful feature, slash. Slash is basically your Control F, your find function. Slash line. And you can see it finds line, the first instance of line anyway. Enter. And if I press N, while I'm in this search mode, then it will jump to the next instance of the word I'm searching for. If I press capital N, so Shift N, I can go backwards in my searches. I can also use directly the question mark to search for line, and then it's reversed. So lower N goes backwards and capital N now goes forwards. I personally always use slash. I would not suggest using both of them. I would suggest just using one of them and getting used to it. Slash word to search for word. But let's put it in here. Word to reverse search for word. Okay, okay. Let's put N in search mode to search next word, and next word could be the next one down or the next one up, depending on if you're searching forward or backwards. And N, let's just, instead of this, let's delete this line, we yank this line, paste it, and N. And now we delete this word, DE. No, we don't want to insert it again. Previous word. Okie dokie. So we can do a lot already. So what if I don't want the full line? Everything seems to be controlled about lines in this program, and that's because actually VI uses a double linked list of lines of characters. Interesting as well. We can talk about that if you're interested. What are we looking at? What if I only want to copy this word? I can yank E and then paste that word. So let's go here, DE to delete a word, YE to delete a word, to yank a word, sorry. What if I don't want to remember all of this? This is where earlier I was talking about visual block. If I press V, visual, this is essentially selecting text. Control V selects text in this block format. Also useful at times. Shift V selects lines. Also useful. But let's say we want standard selecting this text, for example. Right, we don't want undo. We can yank this and paste it. You can see it didn't copy the O, only copied from 4 to 4, from here to here. So we'll type that in there, V for visual selection. Shift V for visual line selection. So if I want all these ones and yank them, I can paste them here. Oh, U. What is actually also very useful, but before that, I'm gonna go Control V is visual block mode. When I use visual block mode is when I want to select all the lines here and then insert at the beginning of all of these lines. Start line with this. Escape. And now I can get all of this. That's really useful. I know it doesn't seem useful, but I use this a lot when I do git rebases, which we're gonna get to in future videos. Now, we have talked about set. set number to show line numbers. Set with tabulator, you can actually go through. There's a lot of options, and I mean a lot of options. I'm going to show you only one other option that I think it might be useful for you, which is set HL search. HL search, let's do this. HL search, highlight search. It basically shows all the words that are current pattern searches. So we searched for line, and now jumping through, it becomes a lot more visible. So if we search for word, it highlights all the matches. Very, very useful. These are the two options that I have always set to highlight search results. Now we've done all of this, how do we leave this program? That's a good question. With colon, we can do a lot of things, but there's three major ones that I want to show you today. Colon W writes the text file. So everything we've done up to now was just in our RAM memory. It had not been written to storage at all. With the colon W, we can write this file, and now it's actually written. So how do we leave? Colon, let's first to write contents to file. Colon Q for quit. Oh, no write since last change. Nice. Basically, Vim told us, we have added this line, but you haven't written this. Add exclamation point to overwrite. Okay, let's do that. Exclamation point. I want to force quit. Perfect. We were able to leave the file, but if we now cut this file, you can see our last line, the colon W line, was not actually written. So let's add this in there again. You can also see number has not been set. We're going to talk about RC files in the future. We're gonna Control W to write contents to file, and colon Q to quit application. I personally use the colon X. Colon X for exit, to exit the application with writing and quitting. It basically is the same as colon W, colon Q. So we have not written this, so if we try to colon Q, it allows us, but colon X, we can exit. And if we now cat our file again, we can see everything has been written because colon X exits the application with writing before as well. This is basically everything we've been hoping for. There is a lot more that VI is capable of, but it's very hard to just explain. What I would suggest, if you want to be able to use VI efficiently, force yourself to use it. You can also go here on DuckDuckGo and put in Vim cheat sheet, and it will put up all these applications that will teach you new functionalities, and just force yourself to use it for a week. Don't open your VS Code to edit files. Don't open text editor. Just use Vim, and over time you will get used to it a lot more. I personally use it a lot when I'm SSH'd into other machines where I just don't have a graphical user interface available, and I can always fall back on VI. But even on my standard machine, in a terminal, like I said, rebase files or things like that, I still do on Vim because it's just faster for certain things I do. It's genuinely faster than if I opened it on in my VS Code. If you have any suggestions, that any major functions that are missed off in Vim where you feel like, I always use this, have you ever done this? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you're using in Vim and the functions, maybe some of the settings that I don't know about, so please let me know. With that, next week we're going to talk about pipes, standard input, standard output, and how they relate to each other. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. If you enjoyed the video, like it so it gets suggested to other people. And with that, have a great week and thanks for watching.